Welcome back to another episode of Ball Knowledge Podcast. Today, we are joined by Sean McDermott, who is a former NFL long snapper and tight end. I'm so thankful that he can be on this podcast. Just take it away. Got anything to say?
Hey guys, just thanks for having me on. This is exciting. I've watched a couple of y'all's podcasts. You guys do a great job, and yeah, I'm excited for it. Excited to learn more about you guys, and I understand you guys just getting done with spring break, so excited that you guys are kicking back off the year with me.
Yeah, I mean, it is like just coming back. Like I was in Minneapolis, kitchen.
I went to Austin.
All
Austin.
right, I'm down here in Dallas, Texas, so great, awesome.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I know you grew up in Texas. Like Texas, very known, very big for their football. So what got you into playing football down there? Was it just like a rite of passage that everyone did there?
It was at least where I grew up. So I grew up in a smaller town in East Texas called Lufkin, and there's actually been some pretty famous like Des Bryant's from Lufkin, and a lot of other pretty good football players. And so when I grew up there, that was the big thing, bigger than even there's no pro football team. So we looked up baseball was big too. They had a program where the elementary school kids would get uniforms to be a little panther of one of the football players. And so I actually looked up. I remember it was Ryan Deaton. I was his little panther. And there was like three of us, and they would bus the whole elementary schools to every pep rally. We would go to the high school gym, and so you sort of got indoctrinated in that. Town sort of closed down to go to the games, and man, it was just unbelievable. It was just you just lived and breathed football then. And kids, the town you actually couldn't play football until eighth grade because you didn't. Back then we just didn't have enough kids to play in this town, and so but we played backyard football nonstop, whatever football. And so yeah, I grew up just loving football and like a lot of kids, that was sort of my dream to hopefully play in the NFL or honestly, I like every sport. NBA, I was looking to do something at that time.
Yeah. So that was probably your primary motivator, right? Is just to keep going, try to keep making progress and eventually going to the NFL. Was that always your goal?
Yeah, as a little kid, you always looked up, you're shooting baskets with your buddy, wanting to be, we were Larry Bird or Magic Johnson or MJ. And then, you're sort of doing that. And, baseball, it was whatever sport was in, riding bikes and, just unbelievable growing up in the country. I also loved the bass fish. I thought it could be good to be a professional bass fisherman. I just wanted to do something, team sports, something getting out there. As I got into finally actually playing real football, my dad got a job in Fort Worth and we moved there in eighth grade. And then I finally got in there. And so eighth and ninth grade was my first sort of tackle football. And then you really fall in love with I was a bigger guy and I was at a smaller school. So they sort of threw me in the line off the bat. I was used to playing, quarterback or receiver, but, by 10th grade, I was like, 6'4", 235, 240. So I was one of the bigger guys at our high school because we were 4A. So they sort of threw me on the line. But for me, ninth grade is where I really fell in love. I was like, I think I had a coach actually that played a little bit in football, and he was the guy that showed me the long snap for the first time. He's like, hey, who wants the long snap? We came over here, and I think it was a USFL. He did it. He was like, man, you got a lot of talent for this. You're a good athlete. He's like, and it's one of those little bugs people put in your ear. That's one of the good things I tell anybody. When you see anybody saying something positive to them, saying something you see good, really can impact. I was just he probably says that to a lot of guys, but for me, gave me hope and dreams. So I had a really good freshman year, started both ways, also did the snapping. And then that dream really came hold. And it just one of the things I knew is, you want to think big, have that big dream, but you got to start small and have a plan. And so for me, I had a Barry Sanders poster, and it just sort of hit me in ninth grade like, hey, if I want to be in the pros, first I got to make varsity. And so in my school, even though it wasn't that big, it was still 4A, where 5A was the biggest at the time. I really wanted to try to make varsity as a sophomore, which, there's usually 1 to 2, maybe some years 3 that make it and start. If not, they'll keep you on JV. And so I put on a Barry Sanders poster, I cut out VCP and put it on his shoulder, which stood for Varsity College Pros. I remember my mind like, hey, I got to work to try to make varsity as a sophomore, then do the best I can, and then college and pros. And so that's what I tell people too. Try to compartmentalize their dreams in the shorter baby steps along the way. It was the same thing as a kid in Lufkin. There were a lot of great athletes I was competing against every day, but I remember thinking, hey, I want to be in the pros. Every kid around the country has this dream. And so I would go around and I watched the show because Carl Lewis was a big sprinter. 1984 Olympics was a big deal. I remember they interviewed him saying, how do you get fast like that? And he's like, well, somebody told me one time, you want to get fast, you got to practice running fast you can all the time. And so I actually had like a little old school stopwatch, and I would run sprints in my backyard all by myself and just do little stuff like that in the house. I would have an old school microwave, and I put power level 0, and I would use that as my timer. I would hit it and run around, do like an obstacle course in my house, come back and then hit it and try to beat that like every day. And so there was just little stuff like that I would do of, always trying to maybe get a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, just to your whole point, that's saying, I just always sort of had that goal once really ninth, 10th grade up. And then, just really had that passion for it. I love football, so it wasn't anything trying to pull teeth. It was something I couldn't wait to do.
Yeah.
So it seems like football is like your big passion, right? And I'm just curious then, like there's plenty of other high school kids around the country whose passion is to make it into the pros. What would be like something you would go back and tell like your ninth or 10th grade self or any other high school athlete right now? Like what is like how do you keep yourself motivated? Like you had your Barry Sanders poster, like, but is there anything that you just told yourself, or are there other people that help motivate you?
Everything. I'd say one of the biggest things were my parents growing up. My dad from a little age, I was very blessed and privileged to have two parents that were so positive. My dad would always tell me like, "Hey, you're a leader." He would always talk about leader's mindset, not being a follower. I mean, when I was a real little elementary school kid, he would say that all the time. My mom, anytime I would have any negative thoughts or anything like that, would always say, "See the good." And anytime if I'd get down or anything, she'd say, "Where's the good?" There's always some good out there. And so, I think one thing people need to understand, like there's a lot of us, especially in these times, you get negative self-talk, you get things going saying this, and you can believe that. Our minds and thoughts can be our biggest liars to, forecast the future. And you get stuck in that kind of rut where no, instead of listening to yourself, talk to yourself positive. Say, I can do this. If you're spiritual, there's no spot where God is not. There's always this positive mindset that you can have to any kind of negative situation, or hey, something goes wrong, I'm using this teacher. I would say having those two parents and then so many coaches and friends along the way, older players on the team. And it's one of those things it's everyday deal. You come battling the older kids as a sophomore, I'm going against seniors. And I was like, okay, I'm doing this. I continually got more confidence doing it. And so, like I said, I had a couple coaches like, hey, I could see you being pro. But the other biggest thing, like I said, why I brought the positive thing is so many people laugh at you can't do this, not going to make varsity. I remember when I first got put on varsity, like the second day, I go jog around, JV's over here. I come and, go stretch with the varsity linemen. A couple of the big, like we had a couple 6'6" guys are like, hey, bro, you're on the wrong side. Get your butt over there. And I was like, no, I'm here. This is where coach told me to be. You know what I mean? You got to sort of like stand your ground and ready to go. And so just all along the way, you get people telling you're not good enough. You're not going to make it at high school level, college, and pros. And that's for everybody, whether it's Tom Brady who had to work his butt off through, like, don't listen to other people, and also don't listen to yourself when you have that negative doubt, because you're going to get it. And just keep seeing the good, see that path, and know that I think when you have that dream and that path and you really believe in it and you visualize it, like you don't have to control how you get there. Like just let the universe will get you. You know what I mean? But it's never the path you sort of envision.
Yeah. I mean, also just after high school wise, I know that you were a walk-on. Just tell us how that process really shaped who you are now and how that shaped your football career.
Yeah, my sort of journey to the pros is probably very unique out of anybody that's been there. Yet it's not, because every single guy had all these challenges and issues, and mine were just mine. But been very easy to give up along the way and just choose a different path. Grew up a huge University of Texas football fan. My parents both went there. And yeah, there we go. Let's go, man. Yeah, I've got a daughter now that's a senior your age. It's going to be a freshman there next year. They may come busting in here a little bit because they're driving back right now. But anyway, after my senior year, right before it, we had this scrimmage and I actually broke a bone right here in my arm. And so I was playing center and defensive end. And I was probably better at defensive end. In my junior year, I'm getting a lot of the bigger coaches calling me, went to some camps and stuff, and I was getting pretty recruited. So, imagine you're getting these calls from these coaches every week, getting recruited. Then I got hit here, and then the first 3 weeks of camp of school happened because I was basically having to shield people. They were like, hey, you're going to have surgery. You're not going to be able to play your senior year. You might come back for playoffs. And for me, I cared about football more than anything, and my buddies. Like, honestly, I hold some of those high school games as big of a deal as any pro game or college game because it's with your people, man. This is everything. I'm sure you guys can relate to that. But so basically they said, and so instead I got it wrapped down and I basically played with one arm. And so I was doing good, but I was just shielding. Instead of like coming off driving people, I was shielding. I couldn't play any defense. And so all of a sudden, these same coaches, a couple of them called me like, "Hey, you all right? You're not having the same kind of explosion." And I explained to them the injury. Coaches go about doing their thing. And so really the recruiting slowed way up. So fast forward to the end of the year, luckily my arm got better. At the very end, like the playoffs, I came in, got to play DN and did really, really well. But by that point, a lot of people had their things. So I basically had some junior college options and a lot of smaller college options. And for me, I was like, I'd rather try to walk on at UT than go those other routes. And I did go to Tyler Junior College visit, and I almost did that thinking, hey, I can come here and then jump up because they were going to let me play tight end as well. But at the end of the day, I chose to go to Texas. I was like, hey, I want to go to the big time. I think I can prove myself. And so I was actually committed, had my roommate and everything at University of Texas, but just how fate goes and for everybody not to get locked down, the coaches were coming around recruiting the juniors for the next year. We had a guy, Darren Wood, who was highly recruited. He actually ended up going baseball route. But they saw while they were recruiting him, I picked up a fumble, ran it like 50 yards, outran a guy. And the guy was like, man, this guy's pretty athletic. What's his deal? And he was like, hey, actually, he's a senior. He was a really good snapper, good guy. He had an injury, came back, and they were like, what? We need a snapper. And so this is a University of Kansas guy. It was David Gibbs, went on. His dad was a pro coach in this. And anyway, they go back, tell him, and I guess at Kansas, their snapper was a senior and gone. And they had just got done with spring ball and had a huge need. And so I'd never been to the state of Kansas. I finally get a call from Coach Gibbs, and then later Coach Rule, Coach Pat Rule's amazing. Both these guys are amazing guys. They basically recruited me like, hey, we need a snapper. We've seen your stuff. We also like your tape to be a player long term. And, if you could come here right now and win the starting snapper spot before training camp goes, we'll put you, because I was like, hey, out of state tuition, I'm not going to be able to pay all that. And they were like, well, if you'll come in as a walk-on during 2 days, but you'll actually sign a national letter of intent if you can win the starting snapping spot and be our first string guy. And so talked to my parents about it. And, I didn't even go on a visit. I never stopped in the state of Kansas. They were like, hey, follow your dream. This feels right. It feels right. And it did. I was like, hey, worst case, if I don't win the starting snapper job, I'll just go back to UT. So I went up there, battled. The only other tight end in the recruiting class was a Prop 48, which back then they couldn't practice the first year. So I got all the snaps at tight end, did really, really good. This is for the freshmen before everybody came in. And long story short, I beat out and became the starting snapper. And so they gave me a full ride right then off the bat, signed the national letter. And it was really cool. Kansas was picked to be 7th in the Big 8 that year. And just to show you don't believe the hype and all that, we finished 9th in the nation, went 10-2, beat UCLA in the Aloha Bowl. So it was really cool as a true freshman to do that. We played TCU, which since I went to Fort Worth Arlington Heights, and I recovered a fumble, which was really cool. And so anyway, just like you're saying, it's a weird path to get there. I could have easily said, no, I'm not going to go there. Never been Kansas. I'm going to stay this route. But I would tell people just be open to what comes to you, because like I said, like that path was there, but it wasn't how I thought. I was thinking I was going to get a scholarship right away, but didn't happen like that.
Yeah. So I was just thinking, because you played both tight end and long snapper, but like more specifically with long snapper, like most NFL teams, for example, they only take on one long snapper a year, which means that there's only really like 32 long snappers in the league. And I assume like in college, it's not that far different, if any. Like, would they only keep like 2 then at max? So I guess, what do you think is the uniqueness in long snapping, and like how did you get drawn into it? Like, because when most people think of snapping, they're thinking of like the center, right?
Yep.
So how did you get into long snapping?
Like I sort of said in 9th grade, this guy Don Sutton said, hey, anybody that wants to try long snapping, come over here. And so I just sort of went over there. There's a thing. There was like 10 of us. We all went and snapped in this, and I just sort of naturally could throw it back there pretty fast. And then he worked with me. And snapping's unique that it's pretty similar, but everybody has it's sort of like golfing. Everybody's got a little bit different thing, and it's honed over time. The interesting thing, it may have changed now, but back when I was in the NFL, like the special teams coaches didn't really mess with you. There was a couple of them that would try to, because maybe they had somebody used to snap. But I'll tell you guys this: Google Bill Belichick and long snapping. He'll answer this better than I can, and anyone that's ever played. That guy is a genius. Somebody asked him this question, and he went off like an encyclopedia on the history of long snapping, from like the first guy ever to get not doing both. He goes into all special teams, sort of like punters, because punters used to be quarterbacks. He's going way back, and really goes into why it sort of deserved a roster spot.
Yeah.
Because it is. Go ahead, son.
No, I mean, like talking about Bill Belichick, what was it like being around him? I mean,
Yeah.
I know he's probably the greatest coach of all time. So what was it like being around him?
And he was amazing. He was very focused. He was a do your job, do your thing guy. And he knew how to use his people to the best of their abilities, and just a super analytical, smart guy that could highly motivate people, and knew how to bring good people around. He brought good coordinators, good coaches, and knew the right kind of people for his system. And like I said, really, if you got time, anybody that ever cares, Google the whole long snapping thing, because it's pretty amazing. One thing I say about Bill Belichick, I got signed actually during the season, and we were on like an undefeated run. So I actually never got to be around him in a loss. You know what I'm saying? So I only got to see maybe even a more positive side, which, even then he's focused. He's coming in and everybody follows that. Same thing like you have a Tom Brady there. He's that same leader who, everybody's on it every day. You got everybody rowing. It's a do your job mentality. And, there's a real synergy there. Yeah. And I, just go back to the previous question, like you say, on the whole long snapping thing. For me, I always really wanted the tight end thing. Long snapping, though, I would tell anybody why it's smart to do it now. It's like without the long snapping, it probably would have stopped, maybe just a little bit in college at most. It was the thing that sort of kept giving me the chance. At Kansas, hey, I was a good prospect for the tight end stuff, but like that's where I could step in right away and contribute, and then I was able to go in and by my junior, senior year, start games and prove to them what I could do. But, off the bat, that's where I could come in and make my impact. Same thing with the pros. I went in there, and that was what it was mainly about, was just the snapping. 100%, that's what it was about. And then actually during 2 days, I was with Tampa Bay and another amazing coach, Tony Dungy. That's a pretty wild story to, another crazy journey to get to that. But, I went and earned the third tight end spot, because that was actually big back in the day, because instead of having to carry 3 tight ends and a snapper, they were able to carry 2 tight ends and a snapper/tight end, which allowed them to have another roster spot everywhere else. So a lot of it's roster management. That's what Bill Belichick got into, why it was worth that. But yeah, that's I tell you.
Can you walk us through your story? I mean, I know it's incredible, and there's an article. We'll publish this in the video description. But can you walk us through like that entire story? How you made it?
Yep, I'd love to. And it's the same thing as I said before. Sort of college, it looked like it was over. Wasn't really getting recruited. Was going to walk on to Texas, which could be a long shot. Just walking on to Texas, y'all know it's there's so many people. I don't even know if I would have got to camp. There were so many people going in. They had plenty of snappers. They knew about me. I had the camp stuff, but it wasn't like this was, hey, we need you, all this kind of stuff. So fast forward to college, had a fun career, great career. Like I said, junior, senior, did really good starting snapper all 4 years. Before my senior year, my junior, I never redshirted. Actually got my first injury and sat out a year, took a redshirt year. Then we're in 2 days. I'm coming back, having a great, camp. Things are kicking butt. And then out of nowhere, the coach comes and he's like, hey, we've got Sean McDermott, if you don't mind. And he actually went up, John Adenetto, come to the coach's office after practice. And right there, my heart just sank. Like I had this feeling like I knew something was real bad. And you walk in there, and next thing you know, coach is like, hey, here's the phone. It's my dad. I never really heard him crying, saying, hey, your mom, my mom died. My mom died like out of nowhere. And the reason I bring this up, I think it's also sort of inspirational when it comes to like everybody around you, like you're surrounded by angels the whole way. So I go back, obviously that's devastating, crying your eyes out, dealing with that. And just, once again, my mom always felt her spirit with me. You know what I mean? She was always there. But my dad, not long after the funeral, I mean, you're crying 48 hours straight. You just don't cry. And so out of nowhere, he's like, hey, you go back. It's 2 days. You go be with your team. I'm going to be okay. When that was hard to leave my dad. My sister was around. I was like, are you sure? But that just shows you how strong my dad was. And then to be able to go back and have those players around me and have like a goal to be focused on 2 days was such a blessing. When a devastating thing when your mom dies out of nowhere, to all of a sudden be put into something where you're 12 hours a day of structure. You got buddies all around you, all going for the same goal. And I say all this just because I was able to get refocused, and I had a good senior year. Then you have sort of the combine at the school that comes up that you're going, and it looks like I may have a chance to do something with the pros. And just, at that time, all of a sudden, just showing the bumps of the road, maybe just life got the best of me at that point. I started not making the best decisions and lost my focus on that. And I think I was so focused during the season And this is just sort of a cop out. I never use it as a reality, but at the end of the day, like I made bad decisions and I didn't have that same focus and drive at that point. And, I ended up not even going to the combine. And so next thing you know, I'm, out of football for a full year. And, I'm working as a bouncer someplace and trying to finish up my degree. And I'm out of football. The whole time I'm watching the NFL the next year. And I'm just like, golly, I could do this. And it's just like this burning thing of like, man, you sort of missed it and da-da-da-da. And once again, with angels and life bring your way, like this looks like it's over. Looks like who's going to go to the NFL now? I'm out for a full year. They weren't beating down my, wall anyway. I was going to have to be an undrafted free agent and go earn every second of it. Well, got Tony Blevins, another awesome dude, guy older than me, went over. He sort of undrafted, he worked his way up, 49ers practice squad. Then he was at Steve Young, then goes to the Colts with Peyton Manning, a couple of great players there. And he ends up being the starting nickelback for the Colts. He comes back and he's like, man, McDermott, I know you could do this. He like showed me one of the checks, which I wasn't really money motivated, but it was just more my dream. And he's like, man, why don't you start working out with me? I know you can do this. Why don't you refocus, come over here? And like I started hanging out with him. Once he got that positive energy, refocus my own life where now I was driven again. I was driven to finish school and I was driven to get back to this dream, start working out with him. When the school combine comes around, I made a huge tape, all my highlights. I sent it out to I did a bunch of research, and this is back AOL, dial-up stuff. And, we didn't have cell phones back then. And I sent it out. I got his agent. I sent it out to the teams I thought I needed. It was the Tennessee Titans, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and go to the combine. Well, the Baltimore Ravens guy was like the most interested. This guy was like, oh, this. I want to act like he's going to bring me in for a mini camp. Nothing happened. NFL draft happens. No one's still called. So I did all this sort of work. Felt like I was in great shape, ready to rock and roll, and then nothing's happened. So a little bit of disappointment again. All of my buddies that were a year younger start getting drafted, start getting picked up. Still nothing happened. So at that point, it looked like it wasn't going to happen because all the teams drafted people, the people that needed snappers all picked up the college guys. And I remember talking to the agent. He's like, it's hard when you sit out a year. That is what it is. So I remember sitting there one day, and this is an amazing movie. Anybody hadn't seen Men of Honor, Cuba Gooding Jr., Robert De Niro, but it details way back, back when African Americans didn't have the rights they have now, and there was a staff sergeant never done what he'd done in the military, and he was super focused going to do this, and he faced so much racism, completely impossible to do what he wanted to do. Went over hurdles where they were making it hard for him, like completely sabotaging him. This guy wasn't going to be broke, was completely injured, under huge pain, and nothing would stop him. He was so driven to go ahead and accomplish his goal, and he did. Like, watch that movie. I want to ruin a lot of stuff, but that's a movie but I remember sitting on my couch, sitting there. I didn't really have any money. I was working at this, bartender thing, had like rent due, and I was like, the only way this ever happens is if I go get in front of these people and show them how much, because I believe more than anything, I knew that I could do it. And so my wife was walking around here, was my girlfriend at the time. She helped load me up a cooler. I called a buddy I played football with that lived in Orlando, and I was going to drive down, had a plan, go try out, just cold call, because he liked my tape. Coach Marchione, the special teams coach at Tampa Bay at the time, on the way hit back Tennessee. So I don't have a cell phone, anything. So a couple $100 to my name with borrowing that. My wife, girlfriend at the time, packs up a cooler. Have no idea where I'm going to stay, anything. Drive all the way down from Lawrence, Kansas to Orlando, stay there. And I'm, got big plans. And I'm going to go drive over to Tampa and just knock on the door, ask for Coach Marchione and, convince him to give me a try. And so
this is like Vince Papale.
Yeah, this is Vince Papale. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. When you guys, anybody ever feels anything, man, follow your gut and instincts, man. It's something telling you. Follow that, and it overwhelmingly hit me. Like, this is it. If I don't try it, it definitely isn't happening. So I was like, you know what? Why not fire my shot? I'm young, let's go for it. So I go down there. I drive over to Tampa from Orlando. And, I go stretch, I'm snapping against the fence. I'm doing it, get ready. I go walk in and, just a secretary lady. I was like, hey, I'm Sean McDermott, Coach Marchione, like my film. I just want to see if I could talk to him, maybe try out. And she was like, oh, hey, he's actually on vacation. It's summer vacation. He's not here. I'm like, oh my God, he's not even here. So there you go. There you go. Plans aren't going like I thought off the bat. So I get in the car. I was like, okay, well, can I leave my number where I'm staying? Because I really, love to talk to me, like my film. I'm going to hang around till he comes back. If he can at least let me know either way, yes or no. But I'd love to have a chance to at least talk to him. And so go back. I'm there for like a week, sleeping on my buddy's couch in his apartment. Got little kids running around. And, the cool thing, we went fishing a little bit, had some fun. I was staying in shape. And then literally I'm about to head back. I'm out of money. My buddy Adrian Green, great guy. He's the guy that putting food in my tummy. And I don't know, I get the call. And it's Coach Marciano. I was like, man, I heard you came down. I actually did like your tape. They had signed a rookie free agent from the local colleges. I think it's UCF is in town or USF, whichever one was there.
USF.
And yep. And so they signed him, and he was so bad. I didn't know this at the time. And so he was like, hey, you come over and we'll check it out. So I drive over, come in there right off the bat. They just give me some clothes to change into it. It's Mike Allstott sitting right here. All these, that team had a who's who: Keyshawn Johnson, Warwick Dunn, Simeon Rice, Warren Sapp, John Brooks, John Lynch, Derek Brooks. I could go on. And so out of nowhere, I put on the stuff, get the stuff. I'm confident. I'm ready to go. I go out the film, and it's Coach Marciano, Angel, Tony Dungy, and John McKay, the GM. So these are like the who's who, like super amazing, awesome people. And they go out there and, they put me through the trial race. I went and snapped the stuff, did all my stuff, and they actually brought out the guy they had signed. And I remember the thing. This is another thing. If you're ever doing anything, just focus on your job. I never look at it. He was snapping. I never once looked over. I just did what I did, snap when I came around, because I kept thinking, like, when I went into it, I was like, it doesn't matter what he does. He makes every snap perfect. He makes every snap bad. I got to do every snap perfect. I got to be on my game. So, I completely focused on what I had to do. Did it, came back in and talked to him. And I just remember looking him right in the eye and just, Coach Marciano was like, so you think you could do this? And I was like, yes, got into it. I was like, none of that. I think I could play tight end. I played at Nebraska. I played at all these places. I've been in big stadiums. And I just really just put my soul into why I believed it. And I was speaking my truth. And, they came back later and they were like, okay, well, we're going to talk. We'll get back to you. So I drive all that way. Instead of stopping in Tennessee, I was out of money at that point, drove all the way back. And like 3 days later, I get a call. They're like, hey, Sean, we want to bring you to minicamp. Put you in a little trial versus him. And, good news, we'll pay for your flight this time. So I got to get it, which was a big deal. Fly in, and sorry, it's a long story. We're almost done. Fly in and go through the minicamp versus that same guy. Did really good. And, they were like, hey, you got the job. You're not got the job. He's like, we're going to give you a chance to go to training camp. We're going to actually sign you. So got to move down, got a little apartment where I had another buddy, Ron Warner, another amazing guy that sort of helped me. He was a defensive end with the team, older player with us, that really helped me along the way as well. He was on the team, got an apartment right by him, and, went to training camp and had to win, the job there. And so, just a quick story on just how amazing Coach Tony Dungy. So first, a lot of coaches yell, scream, go. He was one of the few guys that got respect because he was a former player. More, that's how he carried himself. Never yelling, cussing, screaming. Like the worst I've ever seen him really get upset in my time with him was it was like sort of a team fighting at practice, which happens. Yeah. Wasn't anything out, but he just sort of pulled their butt up about like, hey, we can't be fighting ourselves when you go against the enemies. Like we're wasting time. He did a little more harsh manner, but he also. I always wanted to coach, but I remember one of my coaches told me, he's just like, man, you just don't have a lot of time for families. If you want to be a family man, it's tough. It's an amazing thing. But he would bring his sons, wives. They would let the other coaches bring family like on the team trip. So I just thought that was really amazing and just also very spiritual. And he walked the walk. Like he talked some, but more than anything, he walked that, who he was. And just another blessing to be around a coach like him. And just to show, not tell story, I one time had to stay a little late during 2 days. Get like my ankle wrapped or something, I was icing it. And we had to get bussed over to the mess hall where we eat. And it's just a small bus, it's a small van. So I go out, get in there. I'm in the front seat, right? Rookie free agent. We pull off to go. And here comes Tony Dungy, hey, flying it down. Obviously, we stop. I get out. Coach Dungy, get in the front. He's like, no, Sean, you get up there. You're already there. No big. I'm like, Coach Dungy, I am not under any circumstance going to have you do, you get up. He wouldn't, he forced me to get back in the front seat. And I remember the whole time I felt terrible. I'm just like, so I'm just saying there's not a lot of head coaches and teams that would do that for a rookie free agent. And so that was just a quick story. So, but basically I won. And not only that, I got to do a lot of tight end work. And, eventually I was able to win the third tight end spot. Because I remember one of the coaches came to me and was like, hey, this would be actually really big. You're doing a lot better at tight end than anybody thought you would do. And if you could win this spot, that save us position, we can get maybe an extra defensive back or whatever they wanted to do. That team had a lot of great coaches and players on it. Another little thing I'd say to folks, just anytime you're in competition, Coach Marciano said this as well to I remember all the rookies were in one room and he was talking to the free agents and all of us. And he was just like, hey guys, I really want you all to hear this and hear it well. He's like, when you come in here, it's not enough just to do enough as the guy, the veteran you're trying to beat. it's like a boxing match. You got to knock them out. You got to be better than them. You can't go into a heavyweight boxing match and get a draw. That goes to the champion keeps his belt. You got to go in there and be better than them. So that means you need to come and be before practice. Coaches are watching everything. You need to be earlier than them. You need to be the last one to leave the field. And so it's that little degree. Also, as I got into business later in life, there's a degree that I think it's called 212, and that's the difference. Like in water, between water freezing, turn to mist and stuff like that. That one little degree does matter. So anything in life, it's like me maybe when I was a little kid doing that little extra sprint. Anything in life, man, that one little extra degree can be the difference that you make it or not.
So, I mean, obviously, when we think of the first two-way players, we think of you and Charles Woodson.
There you go, man. Let's go. Let's go. That's hilarious.
So I'm just curious, and like, what is practice or like training camp like when you are literally like, there's the tight end room, there's the special teams room, there's the offensive, like you have so much more to do. Like you literally have double the job of everyone.
Well, not really, because everybody's playing special teams. So that's the thing about like another position Coach Dungy always talked about was like the gunner on punts. Because usually back then they would put two guys that are like, hey, one of you free agents, we'll keep a guy who may be the 6th, 7th D back. He's the best gunner. Nobody can stop that guy and go, let's go. And so, all the linebackers, you only have 47 players playing in the pros. That's the big thing, like guys in college too. Smart college players will start wanting to be on kickoff teams, starting especially running backs. If you're not the starting running back, a lot of times the pros, the third running back, fourth running back, they're an amazing special teams player. And so everybody was sort of doing the special teams and that. There's the select ballers, the quarterbacks, and your stud receivers, running backs. But most of the starting linebackers, safeties, they're on punt coverage and all that. For me, it was just awesome, man. I took a year off, man, to get back in that world. I never took 1 second for granted. Every time I go in there, every play was like my Super Bowl. And I had a chip on my shoulder wanting to prove, sort of like how I went in college to prove I could be tight end. I wanted to prove I could be tight end. I didn't want to just be the special teams guy, which ultimately that was my main thing. But at the end of the day, like I wanted to really earn the respect of the players that like, hey, I could, I'm ready to block any of you guys. It didn't matter who it was. And it was fun. But yeah, it's your dream. You know what I mean? Like instead of going to class all day, now you're in film looking at all this. So it's a blessing. At the end of the day, it was so much fun. And, I never took any of it for granted.
I went to the Bears training camp last year. It was one of my first times going in a minute. It's the first time I could actually enjoy it because last time I was like 6 and I was just sitting there, not knowing much about the sport, just thinking that all these guys are really big and catching a ball. But I went and I'm like because there's so much to know. Like, how do you keep track? Like, there's so much information you have to process in football. Like I hear the coaches yelling out a bunch of different plays and all these different formations. And I'm just curious how as a player, how do you remember, what is your biggest tip for the IQ side of the game? What do you do about that? Because I heard 90% of the game is all mental.
100%. And a lot of it are mental reps too. Coaches talk about it all the time. Like if you're not sitting on the sideline, you're not in it. You're not just, you're running. Anytime anybody's in there, you're mentally running that rep. You're seeing what they did wrong. There's a lot of film study. And it's just like, how do you guys, make an A on a test? You're going over that information. Everybody has a little bit way that stuff imprints on them. But a lot of it's, visualization. I can go back in 9th grade. We had a coach that would have us completely lay down, turn the lights off, and no talking for 30 minutes, and would have us just go through all our plays with our mind, just go through mentally, dominating each play. And then he would flip on the lights with Rocky. Dun, 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 dun. And dude, we jumped up ready to go nuts. We're running out of there ready to take on anybody. But that time locked in of us having positive visualization, it stuck with me the rest of my life. And if you look at Jordan, any of these people, the night before when I'm sitting around, a lot of times I'm mentally visualizing plays and dominating and dealing with stuff. And so, they always talk about a D-backs mentality. They feel like they've never been beat. Anything that ever happened, you can always go back and film and see where you made the mistake. But when it comes to sort of memorizing all the IQ part, I think, I grew up probably like you guys playing a lot of video games outside, watching. We watched so much football. And so that helped. And then just being around these amazing coaches, man. These coaches are the teachers and the players are the teachers. You step in, you got a veteran player, you're watching them. But you get to the pros in the college, they're given even other levels like linemen. If you're going to pull or if you're a receiver or something, you're on that how you have weight on the inside of your foot. So when you're going, you can push off on that foot and go. Like there's little tidbits that you get from people that, and you got to be, I asked a lot of questions. So you see, I'm not bashful talking. And so that was one of the things I always got in there asking a lot of questions that really helped. Yeah, that's it. You just keep learning every day. And you're going to make mistakes. Who cares? Learn from your mistakes.
And what pushed you? What made you keep going even after you got cut? Like what describe, what happened and how that affected you.
Yeah, it's a real world. It's a job all of a sudden. You're in college, you're not going to get cut, and so now, it's one of those things. Actually, I love that about the NFL is that that's the pressure. There's a million guys that aren't in there like I was. I was dying to get in there. There's guys like that all over. Nowadays, it's a lot even different because back then we only had 5. There was 47 roster spots. Only 45 were active. And there were only 5 practice squad players. And so, people were you knew people were coming for your job. You knew, especially as a snapper, that's a very, no one's really paying attention to that. You know what I mean? Maybe you make a tackle. Your best, that's why I like long snapping compared to short snapping. I did both, but long snap, at least you go down and make a tackle. You know what I mean? Maybe cause a fumble. I did some of that stuff, and that was always fun to make some good tackles along the way. But hey, you set one over the head, or you bounce one back, and they get or somebody gets by, and you got elite athletes trying to block punts against you. Because nowadays sometimes they do it different, but in the pros, you usually got to snap and go block. One of their fastest guy trying to beat you through the A game. And so there's a lot more going on that people realize, and you got to be on your stuff every single time. And so it's like you can never miss that 10-foot putt. Every single time you got to go. You miss it a little bit, it's over. So obviously you have a little room for error. But yeah, it's just interesting. It's an interesting deal there. But when you get cut, to me, it's just like, hey, what's next? They come in, what's the next thing going on? And so it actually happened with the Miami Dolphins. So I was in my 3rd year. First year I was with Tampa Bay. We actually went to the playoffs. My coach, Marciano, so we got beat by the playoffs to the Eagles at Philly Old Vet Stadium. It was an amazing game. Yeah. Coach Dungy gets fired. This was 2001. I couldn't believe they would fire this amazing man, built this team. Obviously, they brought in Gruden, got the offense going a little bit with that defense, everything he built, and they won the bowl. Well, my coach, Marciano, he went to Houston. And he knew I was from Lufkin. That's my hometown, only 100 miles from Houston. And so he actually called me up, and this is no cell phones, left a voicemail for me. It was like, hey, I'm in Houston now. Tampa didn't think they were going to, we would take you in the expansion, but we were going to take you in the expansion draft. And so, hey, I know Tampa, they think a lot of you are in a good spot there. If you want to stay in Tampa, I won't take you, but I'd love to take you in the expansion draft. Let me know, give me a ring back. And at the time, and I just couldn't make the decision. I loved Tampa. I had friends in Tampa, and I felt I was in a good spot for that. But I also wanted to go there, so I actually didn't call him back. I was just like, let's go. So I didn't really think they'd take me. But next thing you know, he picked me, which was cool. As an undrafted free agent, I wasn't, I was making the lowest people could make. You got a little bit of signing bonus. They fully moved you. So, coming back to, I was a huge Houston Oilers fan growing up. Warren Moon, all those guys. And so it was really cool sort of being a part of that expansion team. And
that's so
so I'm going at our very first win was versus the Cowboys. Same thing with Tampa Bay. My first win was the Cowboys, which was always fun there. But after that first year, I actually signed with the Dolphins for my 3rd year. So I was with the Dolphins, doing pretty good. There they actually had a guy that was a former. He wasn't an assistant coach, but he was like a guy that helped out, like a little bit below assistant coach. And he used to snap. And so they wanted me to snap a specific way that I was doing pretty good. But at one point, they wanted me to change it up, and they wanted me not to look like I was snapping. So long story short, they got me snapping a little bit different way. And he was like, hey, if you don't do it this way. And so I ended up getting cut. And so it was, even though I didn't necessarily have this bad snap. And so it was sort of like, whoa, what happened here? And it was sort of like, wow, you're going to get picked up. You don't really know what's happening to the season. My agent told me, hey, it looks like it'll happen. And so it's just like you deal with it as it goes. And, had a tryout actually with the Tennessee Titans one time, went in the same thing. I thought I did great in the tryout, but they didn't sign me. But lo and behold, how the world has something for you. The snapper for the Patriots ended up getting hurt, like week 13 or 14. They do the same thing. They fly me up for a tryout. There's like 3 other guys there. Snap, blah, blah. Next thing you know, they signed me. So it was really cool to get signed by them, and they're kicking butt. They're a great team. And so it was one of those things that sucked, but at the end of the day, I knew there was more possibilities coming. So got picked up by then. And, it was tough, but that was one of those things you just keep working through it.
I'm just curious, just kind of going off side note, because you just mentioned a bunch of different teams. Like you got the Tampa Bay, who was a playoff team.
Yep.
You got Houston, which was an expansion team full of new people. You got Miami, who was like kind of in the middle. And then you got the Patriots, who are a superstar
Dynasty,
team.
right?
What can you like? What was your favorite like locker room experience then? Like what locker room were you like? Did you like enjoy?
And they were all different. I loved them all. Tampa was amazing because it was brand new, first time in the pros, and you'd heard like I had a buddy like that Ron Warner guy was in New Orleans where they were actually like hazing. I don't know if you Google it and look, but they had to run through a hall, and there was like a rookie tight end that got like, hit with a sock that had something in it and like did something to his eye and like missed time. It was sort of a big deal. When we came there, these guys took you as family, especially like when you made the team. Like we had to sing like our song, carry a couple plates. We all had each rookie took turns bringing breakfast after the game one time. But like once you showed them you could play, man, they treated you like family. And just all those guys were just down to earth guys. That's what you got to see. That these guys are all just like you two guys, man. Every one of those guys were just like them. They were just kids that had a dream, worked their butts off, and got there. So not that those guys like took us out to do cool things. Like I was in a really cool tight end room. Dave Moore was a veteran starter. Todd Yoder was like a year older than me. Great guy. I was a second-year guy. And then with myself. And one time, like Dave Moore invited me to come over to his place and took us fishing. Took us out. This guy they knew a guy in the marina. Took us way out fishing, and lo and behold, John Lynch, came with us. You know what I mean? And those guys are just treating, just normal people, and little things like that they didn't have to do that I thought were super nice. Then you go to Houston, it was a little bit different because they were bringing a lot of these veterans, a lot of really good veterans. Tony Vaselli, all these guys got drafted. Guys that had just won Super Bowls, like linebacker, like Sharper and stuff. We had some really, really good players on that team. You're bringing all them together from good teams, bad teams, guys that want a chance. And we won the Cowboy game, but then we lost a lot of games. And that was actually tough.
Yeah.
David Carr was a rookie. He set the all-time sack record.
78 sacks, I think.
Yeah. But the crazy thing is that something, and it's probably the same in high school. When you lose a game, there's nothing worse than that because all week it's like a downer. You just can't wait to the next game. Well, a lot of these other teams you're on, dude, we ended up winning the next game. Here we lose, you lose again, and it just gets tough. But you run a bunch of professionals. So everybody's, every day we brought our same work ethic. And Aaron Glenn was on that team. He's gone on to be a great, he was a great D-back.
Yeah.
Then I go to Miami and said that had great players too. Ricky Williams on the team. Dave Wanstead was another really good coach. Don Capers was the Houston coach. Full of a lot of really good guys. Jason Taylor was a DN. Zach Thomas, unbelievable leader, stud linebacker on that team. And that was really cool being in Miami and stuff. I was there the shortest amount of time. And then you go to, like I said, New England, they have a well-run machine. I never saw us lose. I got, signed week 14, whatever that was, week 13, and never lost. They were humming right along. And that team was awesome, man. That team had confidence. That team was player-led. The team had coaches that were on it. Just, you really see that synergy. It's like I said, that 1 degree. Everybody was working. No matter what happened, they were going. And even that Super Bowl, I don't know if y'all remember, but that was the Carolina Panthers versus us down in Houston. They came, they took the lead. We had to go all the way down, and Adam Vinatieri hits it in the field goal. They took everybody to win that game. And so, and they were all amazing, and all blessings to be a part of.
Yeah, I mean, what was it like interacting with the guys on that team? I mean, especially Adam Vinatieri, one of the greatest kickers of all time, right? So being in the same, room.
Man, they were just all good people. That's the thing about it. We were, colleagues, and so they, they treated you like a colleague, and funny. Vinatieri's a funny guy. You know what I mean? A lot of these guys are super funny, super personable guys, and he's just clutch, man. You put him in those big situations, he's the same guy as he is, and so always a good guy. And that's how all these guys are. I didn't really run into any jerks. I thought everybody was a good person. There's a lot of big personalities. Especially in these locker rooms, guys hearing things are in the middle of everything, and that's what's fun. There's nothing better than a locker room, and that's if you miss more anything, the journey along the way, but just those guys and those times where you're all working together. Because being on the field, injuries, people are fighting through everything because it's your brothers. Everybody's hurt. At the end of the year, especially you're looking at 10, 12-year vets. Guys that can't even barely walk. They're getting so much therapy. They're walking out there just every single day, giving it their all in practice. And so that's a real motivating factor. And the other thing is you're watching film. Every single thing in front of the whole team, you're getting to see that film. And you don't want to be the guy that didn't get your job done. And there's a lot of pride and you get your job every time. You don't want to be that one guy that caused that play not to work.
Is there anyone you still keep in touch with from that time, or?
The guys I keep mainly in touch with are the guys that actually played ball with, in the pros that I played college with, like the Ron Warner, Tony Blevins, a lot of those guys. Unfortunately, I just played like 1 year with each of these, so I see these guys, and hey, it's like old times. That's when you've been to the thing, like you see guys, and because you go to the NFL, former players, they put little cool events on, like a chicken and pickle and stuff, and so a lot of these guys were good friends. But the guys that I'm talking to regularly, more the college guys, because you're there 4 years with those guys. You really even get a deeper bond. Where if I would have played for an NFL team a little bit longer, it might be different. But those guys, a lot of them still really close friends with. Just not like talking every day type of deal.
Right.
Well, I appreciate you so much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate
it. Dude, thank you. Y'all mind if I ask y'all a quick question, man? Because I know you said NFL.
Sure.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about y'all's sort of goals real quick, y'all. Just because I want to look up, I bet 10 years I'll see that.
One of my goals is to follow after my parents' footsteps and becoming a doctor in the future. Hopefully go to UT. I'm a big Longhorns fan. My dad went there. He grew up in Texas, so big Longhorns fans. Hopefully I can get there. But those are my plans for the future.
All right.
Yeah, I'm trying to work in the NFL. I'd love to be a coach, love to be in the front office for an NFL team. My favorite team, we got the Vikings right here. So if I could get a dream job, that'd be great. Skull. Just further this podcast, try and see where it goes.
Yeah, really want to grow this podcast. Yeah. I think both of us, that's probably our goal.
Y'all doing a great job, man. Thank y'all so much for having me on. I'll pull this out. I don't really worry about it. That's the Super Bowl ring I was blessed to end up getting.
That's incredible.
It's pretty cool getting to be on that team, man. Just those guys, unbelievable ballers that really got it done. And I only show that just to, man, all you guys with those dreams, whatever it's being that doctor, like you heard my path. And there's a lot of more obstacles on the way. And every single guy on that team had plenty of obstacles, man. Just no matter what happens, you keep going, man. I want to see you in the NFL, see you as a doctor, and, man, just enjoy the ride along the way.
All right. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Guys, thank you. Thanks for having me on.